Gentlemen, and the 2% of ladies that watch this, welcome back to the channel. I'm Babyface P. Today we're going to do a little bit less building. I'll warn anybody who's tuning into this one. This one's going to be kind of a deep dive into what happened with the receiver and what we had to do to fix it. There's not going to be a whole lot of content on actual building today, but this will discuss more of gunsmithing in general and what needs to be done to fix certain things. So if you want to tune out for this one, you can tune in next week, and next week we will have, I think, the final build and test fire. So what happened here, for anybody that's watching that's not aware, and I'll roll in a picture where you can see the receiver that I got from ATI. And mind you, I bought the whole parts kit, receiver, and barrel from another user. But the parts that I've got from him, the receiver that was included, was horribly warped across the right rail. And again, you can see that in the pictures. And I didn't realize it until we had already done all of the barrel work. There was headspace, the gas port was drilled, everything was good to go. I went to put things together, started test fitting, and I realized that it wrapped around like a banana. You put the back stock on and it faced, and again, I think I have a good picture of that. It faced to the right. It was really, really bad. So I contacted ATI. They gave me an RMA number. I sent the receiver back in, so I had to take everything back apart, send the receiver back in. Their gunsmiths, they said their gunsmiths had to look at it to confirm what I was telling them. So I sent it in. I think it took them a week or two, and they came back and said, yes, the receiver is warped. There's nothing they can do to fix it. Mind you, these are all heat treated out of the factory. So you can't just go bending them back into shape. You would have to remove the heat treat, fix it, and then heat treat it again, which I don't have the capabilities of doing that here. Obviously, they didn't want to do that either. So they sent me a brand new receiver, new serial number, and the serial number was a lot higher. And funny enough, I have heard, well, I've worked on two Galils, this being the second one, and the first one was also an early serial number that ATI put out. That one also had dimensional issues. If you watch Misha, I think his name is Mishka or Misha, he's a blind guy on YouTube that talks about Galils, AKs, things like that. He actually, in one of his videos where he built a Galil off of one of the ATI receivers, also reported the same issue I had, which was the material here, this is on the old receiver, the material here was too thick and you couldn't actually click a magazine in. I didn't want to send it back. The person who I was building with, and that was a friend of mine, I was helping him build it, we ended up just taking a carbide end mill and going in here and clearing it. But it seems that the early receivers do have some dimensional issues. So if you're out there and you are thinking about building one of these and you come across an early receiver model, the one that I had issues with, the one that my friend had issues with was in the 100s. The one I had issues with was in the 300s. Check it, make sure everything's in spec before you go doing all of the labor to get this thing put together. Because if it's not in spec, you're gonna go through a nightmare. Now, they sent me a new receiver. That was great. Problem is, the barrel has already been fitted to the old receiver. It's been headspaced, and the gas port is properly aligned and drilled with distance and everything for the old receiver. So, what we had to do, which was probably a 3-hour job, was we took everything back apart. Mind you, the nice thing that they did is they actually demilled my old receiver for me, which I appreciate that. I am a little unhappy that they didn't replace my barrel because it was their screw up. You'd think they would have sent me one of their factory barrels, but they didn't. So what I ended up having to do was take the barrel back off. Well, first off, we measured headspace. I measured headspace when the barrel came in, and the headspace on the new barrel was really, really far out. So you would screw this in, and the headspace was extremely long, way longer than the gauges could even measure. And that was if I were to have created a spacer. So if I made a spacer that went right here, let me see, make sure you guys can see, yes. If I had put a spacer right here to fill in that extra space that was needed and time the gas port back to where it was supposed to be, the headspace was too long. If I tighten the barrel in another rotation, and I ended up, it clocked just off of top dead center. So I ended up taking more meat off of here, like we did in the previous videos, and then timing it again. The second issue we ran into was the face or shoulder here was too long. So you couldn't even get the bolt to slide in and close because the face here, this dimension here was sticking out too far backwards. So the first thing we had to correct is we had to take this face and shorten it. Mind you, it was sticking out to about there. I had to shorten it obviously to here. So that's the first thing you did. And you have to do that slowly. You take this face back in until I could get the bolt to close on it. The next thing I had to do before I did anything else is tested to see how the headspace was, and the headspace was too tight. None of the gauges would close. No go, nothing would close. So because this is a stainless steel barrel, the obvious next step was to take a 556 chamber reamer, which I did, and ream this deeper. So I reset the headspace manually by reaming it in, and same exact process. You just, instead of taking meat here and here, you just ream the inside deep enough for the go to close and the no go to not close. So we got that done. The last thing, let me bring this up so you guys can see. Here we go. Last thing we had to do, which was lathe work, is you can see that these barrels have a feed ramp cut into them at an angle, and that feed ramp is what helps your round kick into it. Without that feed ramp, a round typically would just kind of smash into the side and not feed right. So that had to be put on the lathe, and I had to mill that, or I had to turn that feed ramp back into the barrel. If I had to send this off and have it fixed, I would be very, very upset with ATI that they kind of screwed me even harder. I asked in my initial email if they would consider sending me a new barrel because their screw up caused me to screw that up, and maybe that's out of the question. I shouldn't even think that that would be possible. They didn't, so that caused me to do this extra work. So, short and long of it, I would not recommend their receivers to anyone. This is 2 for 2 that I've had issues with. There is another company out there called Tort. I have never used one of their receivers, but if I were building a Galil from scratch, I would go for one of theirs over an ATI any day of the week, just because this one's batting a 0. The Tort is batting a question mark. So maybe it would be better, maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, I won't be buying ATI ever again. The customer service girl was very nice, but yeah, they screwed me out of, I don't know, 4 hours worth of extra work, and again, that's $300 that I would have had to charge somebody had this been a customer job. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with a headspaced, ready-to-fire firearm. Barrel, I checked. I just did the blow test where you plug the hole and blow through it, and yes, we have a working gas port. I don't have a Galil trigger, so this is going to be fun. I've had to fit a AK trigger in here instead, and it's giving me a little bit of issue. I'm going to finalize that this week, make sure it's perfect, and this weekend we're going to go to the range and test fire. And I think we'll see. I'm not gonna tell you guys yet, but I'm feeling pretty good about this one. So anyways, gents, ladies and gents, hope you guys like it. Sorry, this one's a bit of a ramble rant. Next week we should have the final build video and a test fire video. It'll be all in one. We'll just put it all in one. Maybe. Depending on how long the build video takes me, we'll... Oh, because I also need to do a video talking about... I don't know if it'll come after or before. Maybe next week we'll do that. I need to do a video about talking about fitting an AK trigger to a Galil. They'd not just drop in. So if you want to upgrade yours to a G2 or a... what's the really nice one that I like? I have a good video on fitting that one in to an AK. AKT. If you want to fit an AKT, there's a little bit of work to fit that in here. So maybe we'll do that next week. And then the week after, we'll do the final build and the test fire. But that's what we got going. If anybody out there has a question on which company you should go with, because of my experience, I'm going with Tort. I would not buy an ATI receiver. They're batting 0 for 2 right now, or 2 for 2 on issues. So that's where we're at. I hope you guys have a great one, and I will see you next week when we get that trigger fully functioning, because it's not quite there yet. Anyways, catch you guys later. See ya.